Okay, so I'll start this off. My name is Stephen McCann. I'm a Master of Architecture student at University of Texas at Austin. And I'm the student interviewer, so we'll take 20 minutes. And I'll ask you a few questions before your lecture. I won't be touching too much on your lecture topic. These are more just general questions that a graduate student might ask you. So my first question was that I've seen that you stated that gathering, not shelter, was the preeminent force in the origin of architecture.
People are always talking about architecture as building shelter, and that tends to individuality. You know, when you have to shelter, you say, I have to have something for myself. And my focus is more on togetherness, you know. And I think architects have too much put people in cages and too much emphasis on walls. And I think there should be more emphasis on space and windows. I'm not against shelter, but we must not exaggerate, you know, all that story about shelter. That's good for chimpanzees and so on. You know? Not for people. The most important task is, I think, how to keep people together. And for that, you need space. And there's not much talk about space among architects. This is what my attitude is.
And is there any like formative? Sorry?
Is this an answer?
Yeah, yeah, it's an answer.
Yeah.
No, of course, I do not doubt that you value shelter and what it does for us, you know.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with shelter, but not too much shelter. Also, also openness.
No, when I read that,
and when I say openness, I'm not saying just big windows looking on your garden, on your private garden, but looking onto each other is more important. Having connections, making connections. And I'm convinced that architecture is able to make connections. This is what my story is about.
And is that how you came to design so many like interstitial spaces that are left behind, spaces where people can congregate and communicate in a boundaryless fashion, just open space for gathering?
Yes. It starts with that. But I am in my talk, I'll go into that point further. Yeah. Because
Okay,
I
sure.
can show you some pictures. Yeah.
Okay, and then the question following that was, how does that inform your practice? Gathering as a baseline or a base point for architectural development, where do you go from there? What do you design first?
Space. I mean, you have to work room and space, and I never know when to use the word room and when to use the word space. But having two different words for it, I mean, it makes it easy for you.
And then how do you think the pandemic and, you know, general virtual existence, the fact that we're sharing space, albeit it's virtual, what are the consequences of architecture going forward in your mind?
Snap je dit?
Wat de invloed van de corona en de digitale wereld heeft op...
Oh, that question. I have a simple and direct answer.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I am not from the world, from the digital world. I'm from the paper world, and I'm always the physical world. And for me, the basis is the physical world. But it seems that today everything is going to be more virtual, and maybe also making love is going to be virtual. I can't imagine anything with that, but I'm old, and maybe I don't know nothing about evolution, and maybe people are evolving into sort of virtual living and thinking people, but I don't know. I'm too old for that. But it is obvious that the fact that we can talk now together, just from two places over the separate places on the world, is fantastic. Is a phenomenon. So
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I'm full of admiration about the possibilities, but I'm not taking part in it. Well, now a little bit.
So, but do you think it has consequences for your concept of gathering in space?
I think gathering and space is basic in architecture. I mean, it starts with churches, which help people to sing together and to have a feeling of belonging. You know, feeling of belonging is produced by physical space, I think.
That's
So that for me is the beginning of the whole story. You know? Yeah.
Mm. So yeah, like on fostering belonging and on gathering, how did your childhood and young adulthood form some of these beliefs that you hold so dear? Are there any like specific moments from those times in your life that you look back on as formative for your design and your architecture and your philosophy?
I don't get you. Specific moments in my life.
Yeah.
Every moment in my life is specific.
Is important.
Yeah. You use your eyes and your ears, and you are always in contact with everything around. And I think that many architects are sort of forgetting that. You know?
What do you mean?
Well, they are in contact with the clients, and that's a little bit it. This is a good question, but it takes too long time to really go into it.
No,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Hello.
Yes.
Herman, when you studied, you were making flat houses, and you were being asked to make housing with real roofs.
Yeah.
You were against that, and that was a major moment in your studies where you decided not to join this vision and to oppose to it. And can you tell a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Are you agreeing with that? Yeah.
I would
No,
love to
because
hear
you
about this
were-
project.
When you make a roof, you are in fact making shelter. And when you make a flat roof,
Yeah.
you make space and you give the possibility to people to look out and to be part of the, say, if you like, the universe, you know, and not alone. And you know, I can go under the table, but you must try to be in contact with the world.
But what was the reason that you, as a student, were opposing against this old-fashioned way of making housing?
I think that fits back to the war.
Yeah,
I have been a child of the war, where everything was closed off, nothing was possible, and we were frightened for everything, and we wanted to hide, and we had to hide, actually. And when the war was over, there was this feeling of that the world went open. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's so lovely. So it was in your time at school where you started developing the ideas and looking back.
Oh, absolute, and absolute, and the word freedom became very important. You need to have lack of freedom to understand what freedom means. You cannot understand about freedom by just having freedom, because then it's a sort of how do you say, a matter of evidence. And when you have lack of freedom, you're thinking of maybe of the same of Columbus was thinking when he was discovering a strange island, which afterwards was called America. Yeah, the idea of opening up the world.
So you think the war was that formative on your generation of architects? And
yeah, formed me. Yeah.
Okay, and the other the questions I wanted to get into, which are my burning questions, are it's now 50 years since you designed and built the central Behir offices, or
Yes.
for, I'll probably botch the pronunciation,
Yeah.
Apeldoorn. So it's your 50-year anniversary, and I know about a year ago they're turning these offices into residences. And I'm wondering how you're feeling about that. Do you look back with that with great delight?
I want to talk about that in my talk a little bit.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
I have some pictures with it, which is better
Oh, lovely.
than now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
no, that's
I'm very happy to change, to transform this building. That's what you want to know.
right. Are you guys the architects on this project?
Architects are always thinking of their work like a piece of art, which you have to accept the way it is, and which should stay the way it is.
Mm.
Architecture is not. Architecture is a subject of change, of transformation, in order to adapt it to all the new things that are happening. So buildings should be built in a way that they can be changed. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That is.
And it doesn't happen. Most architects make their pieces of art and say you can't touch it.
Right.
And the people who are living in it and with it are not a fulfillment, but they are considered a pollution. In Dutch, we have the word vervulling, and vervuiling, which is just one letter difference.
What is vervuiling?
Vervuiling is pollution.
Oh, wow.
So they see, most architects see the people who use their buildings as just people who make a mess of it and destroy all the nice things they made, instead of seeing people as the ultimate goal of the whole operation.
Right.
Yeah.
And on this this comment about participation and leaving the architecture to the people and allowing them to fulfill.
Well, more or less, yes, not everything, but stimulating them
Engaging.
to it. Yeah. I mean, you are really going into my talk. I don't need to have that talk anymore.
Okay. This won't be.
advantage of
This
the
is not being
talk is
broadcast right
we
now.
have pictures
No,
with it.
no one will see this until later today, so it's not being broadcast or anything. But on that, I think a burning question I have as a student and a young designer, that maybe you could help me with, is that I really buy into this participation mindset. I really do want a collaborative effort in all buildings, and I want community to take place in the design process. And then looking at your Diagoon houses and looking at Aravena's work in Quinta Monroy, I wonder, and you guys have stopped at very different places. So I wonder at what point you believe it's time to put the pencil down and let participation and community engagement do the work.
Yeah, you know, we are talking about structuralism when you ask this. This is what is structure, what will be always there, and what will be changeable. You know,
Right.
and I could only say I see the work, the building, more as a musical instrument, you know, like it gives you the possibility to play on it, and you can play, and somebody play in this way, others in other way, so you can play in your own way. I mean, this is just. I could also use the example of you have the score, the musical score, and you have the interpretation, how you interpret the score. Yeah. So there are some things fixed. Like the grammar of the language, and everybody uses this grammar in his or her own way.
I guess my question, I'm curious.
Yeah, sorry.
No. I'm curious when that score, that musical score, is too restrictive for improvisation, and when that score is too open, in which it is unfinished.
Absolutely, you are right. There are different kinds of scores, but you have the structure of jazz. It's a basic structure, and it's open for interpretation. Whereas when you take a classical score, it's more defined. So maybe my example is not right. But I'm going into this
Okay.
in my talk. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know our we only get the title of your talk, so I didn't think I was going to breach too much into
with
it.
some pictures with it, it works better.
I understand. And
Yeah.
I will say to close out, the whole school has been so excited for the last 2 weeks, just buzzing your names in the hallway, and we're so excited to hear what you have to say. And I thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me.
Okay, we'll see.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Herman. Thank you, guys.